He walked into the cemetery here, Glasnevin. He walked through a staff entrance gate. He saluted the CCTV cameras and he took his own life.
As I am now, so you shall be. So prepare for death and follow me. No matter who you talk to in Dublin has somebody buried in Glasnevin.
People do call it the National Cemetery. We've a huge amount of famous people buried here.
My name is Eamonn MacThomáis and I'll bring you on the tour this morning. Behind me is the grave of James Larkin, the trade union leader, Morgane McBride, Countess Markovich.
Well, Michael is always very popular. He gets balloons, flowers, yeah.
De Valera a bit, but
very little.
Definitely not as much as Michael Collins.
There was this old lady and she'd long grey hair. They noticed that she had no finger. And James says, who cut her off? And she said, this little thing here. You did!
Visiting a place of memory and mourning is important to Irish people.
Occasions like Valentine's Day is a big thing in our family. She always has to have her bunch of flowers.
You have many graves in Irish graveyards where you have a kneel and pray. And there's one in Glasnevin, you read, sit and chat.
Seen a lot over the years, a lot of sadness. It's actually hardened me towards death, really.
We never, ever get used to death, even in our business.
I would like to think there is something after death. If you want to be a hero, you need to be 5 things. You need to be young, charismatic, good-looking, intelligent, and dead. Yeah. It's a remarkable place, and it lifts my spirit to work here.
Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we're in Glasnevin Cemetery, and I want to tell you a story about a man that used to work here, and his name was Eamonn MacThomáis. He was born in Glasnevin, local to the cemetery itself here in Dublin. He was a resident historian at Glasnevin Cemetery for many years, and he was only 46 when he died. He was a popular character, well known and well loved, not only in the cemetery, in Dublin and throughout of Ireland. Eamonn left school when he was 15 years old, and he started an apprenticeship as a painter decorator. He went to live in London where he met his wife. He returned to Dublin in 1989 and started a career in history, working occasionally with his father on historical tours. He would eventually take up positions in the Guinness Visitor Centre and the James Joyce Centre. He had a little girl in 1991, and following his split from his wife, he joined the French Foreign Legion. Now, after about 18 months or so, he started to work back again in Ireland as a painter decorator. All the while, he continued to work on his history career. So in 2001, he became a member of the 1916 Rebellion Walk and Tours. And in 2010, he took up full-time position at Glasnevin Cemetery Museum. And that is the museum that's attached to this cemetery. Now, he had already casually worked here in the cemetery, doing tours. And he seemed to be always on documentaries, and that's how we became to know Eamonn. So he worked here casually, as I said, since 1996, and he became the star attraction. If you're lucky to have had him as a tour guide, let me know down in the comments, or if you have watched him on one of the documentaries of Glasnevin, you'd know why he was such a star attraction here. He was funny, handsome, charming, and he had a fantastic knowledge of history and a passion for it. He actually published 2 books, Dead Interesting and Glasnevin, Ireland's Necropolis. Throughout his life, he suffered a destructive inner sadness. I read that in a comment, so he'd had depression for most of his life. And unfortunately, on the night that Shane died, he walked into the cemetery here, Glasnevin. He walked through the staff entrance gate. He saluted the CCTV cameras, and he took his own life.
Like to think that there is something after death. Not heaven, not, you know, the great majestical, but maybe just returning to the, oh, I'm going to sound like an old hippie here, returning to, a couple of times in my life, I felt completely connected to everything, just on the grid. Maybe about 4 or 5 times in my life when I was just in the moment, on the grid, felt connected to everything across the world. And I would like to think that when you die, you return to that grid.
He was found by a person attending a funeral, and they alerted cemetery staff. As they approached Shane, they recognised him as not only their co-worker, but their friend and colleague. Shane's funeral took place here, and he's in fact buried with his dad. So we are going to actually take you over to Shane's final resting place. And, you know, we have watched loads of documentaries of, you know, Glasnevin. We've watched a load of the tours and documentaries. And strangely enough, the other day we put on a documentary called
1 Million Dubliners.
And here was Shane talking about his beloved Glasnevin cemetery, history, and closer to the end of the documentary, it took a strange turn, and they discussed about Shane's passing, his untimely death. And in that moment I felt immense sorrow. So we're going to head on over. Sorry, people had just passed by there. But yeah, both of us were shocked and saddened, weren't we?
Yeah, it was sad to think that somebody who was so involved in the history in the cemetery here in Glasnevin passed away, I suppose, at such a young age.
But that he chose this place.
And he chose here to end his life.
It is extremely sad. I don't know anybody that hasn't been touched by depression, like Shane, the way he lost his life, I suppose. And we all know plenty of people that have been affected, just like Shane was. So in the documentary, excuse me, 1 Million Dubliners, Shane talks about his own mortality, about wanting to be buried with his dad, And he talked about the afterlife as well. And it was interesting what he said, that he said 4 times or so in his life he felt content and happy. You know, not that he was only 4 times, but those were the times where he felt, you know, he was here in the now. And he believed that after you passed away, that that's where you go. So not necessarily heaven or anywhere like that, but to that higher level of contentment and, you know, being happy. And I kind of like that, you know, that description of after you die, I suppose. But, you know, he was one of those men that every time, in fact, when I started doing videos in YouTube, I owe a lot to Shane, because it was always his documentaries that we went back to, or documentaries on Glasnevin, and Shane was there. He had a mind full of knowledge and history, and you could feel the passion. But unfortunately, it's years ago now since Shane has passed away, and we just didn't know just till yesterday, I think it was, when we watched that documentary. So for us, it is a huge sadness, almost like it has just happened. But we're going to go up to Shane's grave and his father's grave and pay our respects. And funnily enough, Shane is actually very, very near the huge round tower there, where he would have often stood and had tours with hundreds of people.
I see his blood upon the rose, and in the stars the glory of his eyes. His body gleams amid eternal snows, his tears fall from the skies. I see his face in every flower. The thunder and the singing of the birds are but his voice, and carven by his power, rocks are his written words. All pathways by his feet are worn. His strong heart stirs the ever-beating sea. His crown of thorns is twined with every thorn. His cross is every tree.
And here Shane is, 1967 to 2014. His father, Eamonn MacThomáis, 1927 to 2002. And there Shane lies. Patriots, historians, writers and Dubliners. Rest in peace, Shane. And thank you for all the history that you have shared with us over the years. And we will continue to watch the documentaries with Shane in them.
When I think, yeah, someday I'm going to be buried here, where better, you know? Where else would I go?